What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to talk about when we will get Borderlands 4. Now, I like to have one of these kind of discussion or topic-based videos for a lot of the new games or the big games that release. But before I jump into this video, I want to give a quick thanks to 2K Games for providing us a code for this game. And I also want to say that we are giving away this game separately on our channel completely for free on any system that the game is out on. So PS4, Xbox One, and Epic Games Store. If you guys are interested, if you guys know anybody that wants this game, definitely send them our way. But again, I do like to have these kind of conversational pieces for games like this. And when it comes to Borderlands, this game, I didn't really realize until looking at when these games have released just how long it's been since Borderlands. Now, Borderlands 3 is the first game that I'm super jumping into. Truth be told, Tales from the Borderlands, which is Telltale's one, that is the first game that I truly got into for Borderlands, and I absolutely loved it, and it honestly gave me a lot more respect for the Borderlands franchise. I thought that game was absolutely phenomenal, and it made me more interested in the world of Borderlands, and I've played all of them. I actually did own the first Borderlands. I have the second Borderlands, the pre-sequel. We just got, PlayStation had the whole, the free game of the month thing, and the pre-sequel was one of it. But, looking at these release dates, it's been 5 years. Now, Borderlands likes to do, or I should say 2K or even Gearbox, likes to put it out in the fall. And it's always been in the fall. It's either October or September for every single Borderlands. Borderlands 1 was 2009. Borderlands 2 was 2012. Borderlands, the pre-sequel, was 2014. And now Borderlands 3, we have it in 2019. So it's been 5 years since the last Borderlands game, and you can kind of see why, because this game is by a mile the biggest one, right? The kind of most expansive. Obviously, it's taken them a long time to make, and then Gearbox has made other games in between. And I guess that's the question too, is when looking at it, you look at it and you say, okay, well, it was 3 years in between 1 and 2, 2 years in between, you could say 2 and 2.5. But Borderlands, the pre-sequel, looked on by a lot of people as probably the worst or the weakest, let's say, Borderlands game. It's one of the shortest ones. Its length is like half the time of Borderlands 2 and just a little bit more than Borderlands 1. So, overall, I don't think the quality was quite there. Maybe it's because, 2 years later instead of 3 years, maybe that third year they could have provided more content. But they've done stuff in between, and so you could argue, well, if they were to just make, if Borderlands 4 is the next game that Gearbox makes, which it doesn't have to be, but if it is, and you also have to look at current day with post-release stuff. And we know that this game is getting it. We know it's getting some free updates. We know it's getting raids down the line. We know it's getting story DLC, which is awesome. And I'm a big supporter of those kind of things. And I do like DLC for games as long as they're done right and as long as they're done well. But at the same time, because of that, and because we live in the world where you have to kind of support the game for at least maybe like a year after the game comes out, that does slow down future projects. I have always believed that that's just what it does for any game. If you're supporting a game, even with a quarter or a third of the team making the post-game, content, you're not having the full team make the next game. And obviously, yes, they ramp up, they hire more people, they get, everything put together when it comes to making the next game, and everything kind of elevates itself, and then they go full scale into it. And that will happen, but it does slow that down a little bit. So I guess the question is not, will we get a Borderlands 4? Because we are. Borderlands 4, I think Borderlands is one of the most successful franchises ever, even with all of the drama that's happened because of, of Take-Two, of Randy Pitchford, of Gearbox, and, some uncertainty still there with a lot of stuff behind the scenes. You can look at all that, whatever, but it's actually a testament to how good and how popular Borderlands is to say that it didn't affect it. Okay, this game is still going to sell millions. It's going to probably be a Game of the Year contender, So the game's very, very popular. The game's loved. It's easily one of the biggest games of the year, I think, in terms of just, how many copies it sells. Review-wise, it's doing very good. Again, there's some sketchy stuff around there in general, but at the same time, the game's very successful. The game is extremely successful, and so although that there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that there are kind of problems, it did not hurt this game, and that's a testament to how good and how hyped people were on Borderlands 3. And it's a money seller. They're going to make a ton of money on this game. And so when it comes to another one, this is not a franchise that's done. It's a franchise that I think just continues to go. It's a franchise that'll benefit from next gen. And, not every franchise that has been around in this gen or last gen will, make it. There's a lot of games that don't make it from one generation to, or a lot of franchises, I should say, that don't make it from one generation to another. And Borderlands is definitely not one of those. Borderlands is a franchise that'll make it, through any console generation. It's very, very popular. So I do see a Borderlands 4 happening. The question is when. Well, again, I don't think it would take 5 years. Again, I don't think that would happen. I think it would probably be more around that 3 to 4 year period with next generation consoles. There's also a recent rumor, or like a leak, I guess you could say, that I think somebody talking for the PS5 said just because of how like the architect for the the architecture for the PS5 is, and I guess you could assume that means Xbox as well, it's going to lead to shorter development times. Now, that's a pro and a con because it ultimately does mean that we're not going to get a lot of time in between games. I think game companies, game developers can push out games much, much faster. I do believe that. I think the goal would probably be to get games out every 2 to 3 years instead of having some games take 4, 5, 6 years to get them out. I do think that's the plan with next generation in general. I think it makes a lot of sense because at the end of the day, most companies probably can only get, developers, I should say, not even publishers. Publishers can, if they have a lot of developers underneath them, they can get a lot of games out. But if you're a developer, you look at even like a Naughty Dog, say, for PS4, they really only made 2 games, right? Uncharted 4 and Lost Legacy. And Lost Legacy was kind of that DLC hybrid, and The Last of Us Part 2. But they did that all in like 7 years. So I think the goal is to get these games out faster, have developers be able to make more than 1 or 2 games in a current generation life cycle. So when it comes to Borderlands, I think the goal would be 3-ish years. I feel like, and I think they found their sweet spot in that September-October period. So I feel like it would be fair to say like 2022, September-October of 2022 would be the next time. I don't see it going another 4 or 5 years, especially I think because of all of the hype, all of the excitement for it. Will it happen again? Maybe it's a byproduct of it being 5 years since the last game that so many people are excited. Maybe if you release a game 3 years down the line, maybe there's going to be less excitement because it's a little bit closer to when Borderlands 3 came out. But at the same time, you do have to ride that hype. You have to ride the success. And I've said that for movies. I've said that for games. You have to ride the success of these things sometimes. So if Borderlands 3 is the major success that it is, you can't go, in my opinion, it's unwise to go another 5 years to really, and that's just kind of like the strategy of it, I would say. It's not necessarily the reality of it. At the end of the day, they're going to take the time that they need to in order to make this game. They're going to, it's up to them. They can take as long as they want or as short as time as they want, as long as the game is good. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. But I would think that the goal of 2K even is to get another Borderlands out in another 2 to 3 years. Another thing that could very well happen because Borderlands is such a big game, we've talked about a lot for other games in terms of next generation consoles. Maybe we see next year them do a Game of the Year edition for PS5, Xbox Scarlet. Maybe around launch, around like November of 2020, we see Borderlands 3 remastered or Game of the Year edition, and it's for the next generation consoles. I see that as very possible because it is such a popular game, because it is such a big game, and that would kind of bridge the gap between, you'd have post-game content, you'd have a Game of the Year edition, and then a couple years down the line, you'd have a Borderlands 4. So guys, let me know in the comments below, when do you think we will get a Borderlands 4? I guess also, do you think we will just in general? I think it's a guarantee that we're going to get another game in the Borderlands franchise, but when do you think we'll see it? Let me know. Make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel, Podcast Now. Hit that bell icon so you guys know when these videos go up, and thank you as always for watching, and I hope to see you all on the next video.